Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I'm your host, Joe Zollo. We are coming up at about the halfway point of our team previews, starting tonight with the Raiders, moving into the Saints, and then finishing up with the Indianapolis Colts for our 2024 fantasy football team previews. Myself, Josh, Ryan, the three of us are back, and Matt Donnelly from Dynasty Vipers and RotoBaller will be joining the show this evening. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. As always, Joshua, Ryan, how are we, gentlemen?
Tired,
so
man.
Good.
Late for us.
Yeah, I'm an old-ass man. I don't even know what 9 o'clock looks like.
It's
First
late
time I've
because
been off my couch at 9 o'clock in years.
it's late because our muted friend in Alberta, Mr. Matt Donnelly, is joining the show. Matt, how are you?
It's early here. We're still 2 hours behind you. So I got grandkids running around. That's why I'm on mute, because we're still really telling what they're going to say, right?
That's fine.
So it's better
just like the three of us.
Stories. Well, that is true. I mean, there's probably times people wish they could mute me during a show. Well, I mean, you guys could.
Yeah, it's just like that, very easily. Don't tempt me, Matt. Every time we have Jake Trowbridge on the show, I kick him out because his Wi-Fi failed the first time he did a show. So every time I kick him out thinking his Wi-Fi booted him again. So,
well, you got to be careful up here during the winter, because we might have some like beaver running around or some chipmunk or something out in the backwoods here just kind of chewing on the internet cable. So anything's possible up here.
I love that beaver or chipmunk came out. I like moose or bear, like the more common ones people would associate.
I was going to say, I'm in upstate New York, and I have groundhogs and chipmunks just occupying my backyard at all times.
I love it. I love it. And we'll start off with two great comments. Wilson says, "You guys the best." Thank you, my brother. Go Iowa. We collectively as a group have the same amount of points scored on offense as the entire Iowa Hawkeyes football team does.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Boston Celtics. Kyrie smells. It was just the cherry on top that Kyrie looked like an absolute puss for the 3 games he played in Boston. Oh, we absolutely love that. Happy day for Celtics fans. All right, here we go. Before we dive into our teams, we have some NFL news. Biggest news, Trevor Lawrence signs a record extension, 5 years, $275 million. That ties Joe Burrow for the highest average annual value in NFL history. You know, for all the greatness that Trevor Lawrence has done for the Jacksonville Jaguars franchise, like not make them a 500 or below football team, he deserves a record extension. And T. Higgins has finally signed his franchise tender, so Joe Burrow, the aforementioned, will have his second target there to
I brought this up on Saturday. That also makes him more tradable. So I wouldn't go into this thinking he is definitely a Bengal. He probably is. But what I said on Saturday is he's definitely playing 2024. That's all this means.
Because Andre Yoshivas is going to be the wide receiver 2 for the Cincinnati Bengals this year, as reported on by me asking Zach Taylor that question at the combine.
I think our dreams and hopes of Yoshi being anything are dead, Joe.
I don't know about that. I'm just saying, you never know. You absolutely never know.
Joe's falling for the coach speak, but it's okay.
I never fall for coach speak. Absolutely ever. And Zach Taylor was like, we're not handing it out yet. So I'm like, all right, so you have it. You gave it to him, right? He's the number 2? Perfect. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it.
I get it. Zach Taylor, he's a good-looking dude, man. I mean, anything that comes out of his mouth, I'd probably fall for, too.
There you go.
Sure. I mean, I guess. I hate coach speak. Diving into Las Vegas Raiders. 8-9 last year. Same coach, Antonio Pierce. Technically new, but same. Promoted from interim status last year. McDaniels started the season. McDaniels shockingly sucked balls. And
God,
then Antonio
why
Pierce.
does that feel like forever
Eons ago?
Like I knew Pierce replaced somebody, I would have actively bet against it being McDaniels. I thought that was 2 years ago and we were already talking about somebody else.
Remember when the Colts got so pissy that they missed out on Josh McDaniels? Wasn't that like him doing them a favor when you think about it?
Failing up.
Yeah, it's called failing up. It's that subtraction, addition by subtraction right there. And new offense, Luke Getsy, the Bears OC for the last 2 seasons. So the offensive masterpiece that was the Chicago Bears is now coming to Vegas.
I read a report that completely threw me off. I didn't know a ton about Luke Getsy. He went to the same school I went to, Akron. I knew he bounced around the NFL a little bit. Apparently, his offense is so complicated. And so I think he just has this like ego where they said Justin Fields did not understand anything he was trying to get done. And now Gardner and Aiden O'Connell both look like shit at OTAs because nobody understands his offense. Like, maybe take a step back, bro. Like, you're not an offensive genius. Maybe you need to work on your playbook a little bit there.
Does Luke Getsy understand his offense is the question. So I love hearing those things. And what's even better is currently their quarterback 1 being drafted is Gardner Minshew, a quarterback 33, but right behind him, Aiden O'Connell, quarterback 36. So you take your best guess on who the quarterback is going to be. Now, Gardner Minshew is currently the last presumed starting quarterback being drafted. The reason he's 33 is Justin Fields is being drafted higher than him because people think that him and Wilson are going to be in a race right there. There could be some Justin Fields trickery. And obviously, these are best ball ADPs right now. This will very well most likely change starting in late July, early August, when more redraft drafts are actually happening. Zamir White, however, is the RB1 for your Las Vegas Raiders, RB23 currently in ADP. Alexander Mattison at 66, and the man who deserves a little more praise, Dylan Laub at RB69, not just because his ADP is 69, but because the man will be and is a dog currently. I love Dylan Laub. Davante Adams, the wide receiver 1, undoubtedly, wide receiver 13. Jacoby Myers, still feeling fairly underrated at wide receiver 58. Trey Tucker, 107, had a couple pop games last year, and they bring over Michael Gallup from the Dallas Cowboys. He's currently not being drafted, so he's just chilling there. Tight end 1, Brock Bowers, he's currently being drafted, tight end 10. And Michael Mayer, the backup, tight end 37. Could be looking at some 2 tight end sets there in Las Vegas. We'll start in the backfield, kicking it to you, Matt. Zamir White, RB23. This is, for all intents and purposes, it's his backfield. I don't think Alexander Mattison is going to contend with him. The only thing that could contend is Dylan Laub, maybe on third down because his pass catching and his route running ability, but he's still a rookie and has to prove everything. Do you like Zamir White where he's being drafted? Do you have qualms? How are you feeling?
I love Zamir White right here. I mean, he's one of my favorite. If you're in that 0 RB or hero RB type thing, Zamir White is the perfect answer to whatever question you have going on. Now, I'm going to take this back just a little bit to Antonio Pierce here a little bit and Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is the Ric Flair of quarterbacks, right? To be the man, you have to beat the man. The jort-wearing, bedazzle-wearing Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas. It's all about the attitude when it comes to Antonio Pierce and this Raiders team. And 100%. Antonio Pierce, he is that old school football coach. And you know what? You don't have to be a defensive mastermind. You don't have to be an offensive wizard to be a head coach. You have to be a manager of people. And I think that's what Antonio Pierce is. So when the Raiders made the mistake of letting Bisaccia go and going with McDaniels, that went huge in Raider Nation right there. Bisaccia was a coach that the players absolutely loved, and the Raiders made the mistake of not going with him. They were not going to make that mistake a second time with Antonio Pierce. Every player in that room had this man's back. Every man to a T is going to play that Antonio Pierce type game, and there's no one better that exemplifies that than Zamir White. Weeks 15 through 18 last season, which is the sample size that we really have for Zamir White, he would go on to average 23.3 touches and churn out on average 114 yards per game. 93 touches over the final 4 games of the regular season. And we know volume is key when it comes to the running back position. You're getting a running back here at RB23 that was getting volume of the top 5 running backs in the entire National Football League down that back stretch. That production that we saw from Zamir White, that added up to RB12 when we look at his fantasy points over that period of time on a per-game basis. Further to that, I mean, we knew they let Josh Jacobs go. Josh Jacobs was ineffective. Everyone could talk about Josh Jacobs was there. Look at what Josh Jacobs did when he was there. He was ineffective. He wasn't having a typical Josh Jacobs season. And then behind that very same offensive line, Zamir White comes in and absolutely crushes it. White finished that stretch 6th in yards after contact per attempt, 13th in explosive run rate, 17th in success rate. That doesn't just stop there. So I'm not going to be shocked in any way, shape, or form if Zamir White somehow ends up with 300 touches this season and all the goal line work, which is even bigger because, hey, you need them tutties if you're going to score in fantasy points, right? I mean, that's where all the points are going to be in those tutties. Zamir White's going to get those goal line works. This offense can't be any worse than it was a season ago. It really isn't.
It can only go up.
Gardner Minshew's got probably even more talented wide receivers now than he had in Indianapolis. And he was a Pro Bowl quarterback when he was in Indianapolis. Michael Pittman, Davante Adams. Who's the number 2 in Indianapolis? Who is the number 2 in Indianapolis? Alec Pierce? Come on, man. Jacoby Myers, you mentioned him right there. Let's put some respect on Jacoby Myers' name. You mentioned, was our wide receiver 58? He's going to be like wide receiver 24. He's the guy who could sneak into the top 24 and be a wide receiver 2 for you.
He was last year, damn near, I think.
He was. That's exactly it. So you've got some weapons to the outside. Bring in Brock Bowers, Mr. Businessman, Mr. BM himself. And now all of a sudden you've got 3 pass catchers capable of taking away that box, which is going to make things much easier for Zamir White here in 2024.
Let me tell you, I didn't give a shit about Zamir White until that. So I could care less about Zamir White. So now I'm drafting him. When we go back
to the 2022 draft, everybody's fear on Zamir White was the knee injuries. And so if he's over those, we thought this kid was going to be really good coming out of Georgia. And then I go back to the 2 guys who I really liked out of that draft are Zamir White and Kyren Williams, both blowing up. And now Kyren Williams in a way, way bigger spotlight than Zamir White was. But it's just interesting that these late round picks from 2022 are starting to show out a little bit. But just the biggest thing that Matt didn't touch on, because he hit on everything else, is zero competition, because Alexander Mattison is JAG, just a guy. So literally no competition for Zamir White. That backfield is his once again, like we saw in those last 4 weeks.
So go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, how can you not love this situation? I mean, aside from all of the stats, just looking at the situation, there's nobody behind him. As you keep his ADP depressed, he's going to be a value no matter where he ultimately ends up performing for this season. I do worry a little bit that maybe he doesn't see the type of pass catching volume that Josh Jacobs did or it earned in the last few years. Whether that's Dylan Lobb coming in and taking some of that work, whether it's Brandon Bolden, kind of the holdover from that Josh McDaniels era.
That's not Brandon Bolden. I can guarantee you that right now.
But you know what? He was second on this team in targets last year in terms of the running back room. That's what I'm getting at. If Dylan Lobb can't figure out passing downs and pass blocking, he's not going to see the field to earn those touches, right?
Don't worry. That man is a University of New Hampshire educated graduate, sir. Okay?
I mean, I think he's smart in being having
put some respect on the D1 AA Wildcats, baby.
Regardless, everything to love about RB23 at this point with 0 behind him. Alexander Mattison, we all hyped him a little bit last year because he had no competition. Then he came in and dropped the ball. I'm not saying that can't happen with Zamir White, but you still have to buy in because of the depressed ADP.
We did not all hype Alexander Mattison.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I'm throwing that out.
Incorrect.
Fair point.
Just one.
But the point I was getting at with
Alexander
Madison last year was he was a value at where he was being drafted,
and then he wasn't when he actually played NFL.
You are
football.
until you aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
You are until you aren't. You know?
Yeah, innocent until proven guilty, and he was proven guilty within 1 minute of the NFL season last year. Real quick, We love our Would You Rather games, and we love playing it with our guest players. Matt, you probably never played this before. Would you rather? Very simple. I put out 2 names, and you tell me which one would you rather. It's a hard concept to understand.
I love that we explain it.
Yeah, it's a very hard concept to understand. He's Canadian. I don't know if it's different up there. And
the American Canadian translation gets a little tossed up. The metric system,
Ryan,
the imperial system.
It's the metric system.
There's a clear language barrier here.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure he understands. I don't need an explanation. Just who would you rather have? And I'm gonna go because we're gonna play Hero RB. That's what we're gonna do. The 0 RB strategy. There's a lot of running backs going the 8th round, so there's a lot of people probably playing the Hero RB strategy with all of these guys. So I want to see, would you rather Zamir White, who's RB 23, and again, these are all 8th round guys, or Ramondre Stevenson, RB 21. Matt.
Well, as you know what I am saying here, I'm probably going to go with a running back from Las Vegas. You know what? It's funny because on my redraft rankings there, I've got Zamir White at RB20 right now, just behind Najee Harris, but just ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. And you can't just ask me a question that would you rather and leave it at only saying one name and not having to speak, because I don't know when to shut up, but I'm going to go Zamir White here pretty easily.
Ryan.
I can't give up on Mondre. Give me Mondre.
Josh.
Yeah, it's Ramondre pretty easily for me.
Ramondre. I'm a Patriots fan. Jonathan Brooks or Zamir White. Matt.
Again, I'm going with Zamir White. I got the guy. I know what his volume is going to be. I know what his role is going to be. You talk about Ramondre Stevenson there. He's got Antonio Gibson, whether you want to believe it or not. Stevenson's bread and butter was the passing volume he was getting. Gibson's going to cut into that. Zamir White never really got the volume in the passing game, so I'm not even going to have to factor that in the equation. Jonathan Brooks, first off, he's still dealing with that injury. He's still not back yet. And let's not just forget, Chuba Hubbard, a fellow Canadian from the Edmonton area. Let's put some respect on the man's name.
Now.
He came out and he actually played pretty good. So, I mean, everyone wants to bury him because the rookie's there. I don't think he's ready to give up that spot yet. And listening to David Canales, again, we're talking coach speak here. He had a lot of positive things to say about Tommy Tremble. Take that as you will. And he had to say good things about Chuba Hubbard here. So, hey.
Take that as you will.
Yeah. Tommy Tremble and Chuba Hubbard in the same sentence isn't a glowing endorsement for either guy. Ryan.
No, it's Zamir White.
Josh.
It's Jonathan Brooks for me. ACL injuries aren't what they used to be. I'll take Jonathan Brooks all day, every day.
And Jonathan Brooks may not be what he used to be.
You're right. He could be better.
I'll take the team with the better defense because they'll have more opportunity to run the football. So Zamir White at that point, but to me, it's close. It's close on both of them. And now these next few, because I really don't think there's much of a competition until the last guy. Somebody stop me if you would take this guy over Zamir White.
No.
DeAndre Swift. Jalen Warren.
Not me.
No.
Zach Moss. Tight.
It's close. It's close. I'm still going to go Zamir White. I love the fact that Moss is going from one offense to another offense. It's basically the exact same. Single back, shotgun, a lot of success. I think Moss is a sleeper, but it's still White.
And then last one where I think there could be conversation because of his what he's done. James Conner.
I would take Conner.
I have Conner in my rankings at RB16, so he's ahead of White here. And I think, again, let's not bury a man before he's dead. Trey Benson's coming here, knocking down that ADP on James Conner. He's not going anywhere, at least not for the first 12 weeks of the season.
Josh?
Yeah, the only one of those guys that I wouldn't take is Zach Moss. I love all of them over Zamir White.
So you're just so you're Zamir White.
I think the biggest issue with Zamir White is, and Josh touched on this, and I imagine this is where it's coming from in his rankings, is we don't know what the passing game is going to look like.
Yeah.
Those other guys, you're assuming they're taking the lion's share of everything. So.
Fair.
Yeah, and see, and I'm just going off that small sample there where he wasn't getting that receiving yard,
but he was still fine.
But he was RB12. So, I mean, if I'm getting an RB12 with no receiving work, even if he gets like a portion of that, I feel pretty good that he's going to finish top 16. He's probably going to outdo my ranking of RB20.
Yeah. Joe, I know you want to move on. I just want to really quickly throw in. I always find it interesting when I see Vegas lines on players, and FanDuel has been really weird on some of the ones I'm going to bring up today when I was doing my research. But the special line on Zamir White for touchdowns was 10, and the team scored like 7 last year. And I was like, that seems like a very high number. Like, strange to me.
Well, Ryan, we're going to keep it with you because we'll just bounce from one Georgia guy to another. Brock Bowers, tight end 10 currently. He was the first round pick for the Raiders. Yeah. A lot of people had him either mock going to the Jets or the Raiders.
Yeah.
Is it much better of a situation? No, but he doesn't have a quarterback that hates tight ends. So that's huge. And he's tight end 10. He's currently going in between a lot of pretty heavy hitters at the tight end position. Is he the mid-round guy you want to go for? Because he's sandwiched between Jake Ferguson and David Njoku.
1,000%. This is what I brought up in my article is I have never seen a disconnect between hype and average draft position that I'm seeing with Brock Bowers. I'm going to be super interested if this gets better or worse come August when we get into just total redraft season. Because I don't know how much the average fantasy football player follows college football to know that, like, Brock Bowers arguably is the greatest college tight end to play football, at least from a receiving standpoint. And now we put him on the team, and all of a sudden it's like, well, fuck him. Like, the Raiders have destroyed all of his value, and it makes zero sense to me at all. When you look at this team, Luke Getsy's system, Gardner Minshew certainly, and to a lesser extent, Nate O'Connell, they throw to their tight end 15 to 20% of the time. They were in the bottom 10 in plays called last year, and you could still see that translate to 100 targets going to the tight end. They didn't throw to the tight end a lot last year, but that's because Michael Mayer had trouble getting past Austin Hooper. And now all of a sudden people are like, Michael Mayer is a sleeper. He couldn't get past Austin Hooper. And now Brock Bowers is there. This is an offense where we're going to see Brock Bowers essentially play the third wide receiver with Jacoby Myers and Davante Adams. Mayer still could see some traditional tight end snaps. Bowers is that guy.
Hey, can I ask you, Ryan, where did Michael Mayer go to college?
Notre Dame.
Because Notre Dame can't produce fucking skill position players.
But I do want to go back because I just drafted him in a Dynasty startup. Cole Kmet is the case study for why you should love Brock Bowers, not hate him. Because Cole Kmet had 2 NFL touchdowns before working with Luke Getsy. He scored, what was it, 6 and 5 in the last 2 seasons, or 12 total in the last 2 seasons, something along those lines. Luke Getsy gets his tight ends into the end zone. Brock Bowers is not going to have the touchdown problems. I'm in love with this. As long as he stays in the 8 to 12 range, I am all over Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, if he stays in that range, will cause me to not take Travis Kelce early because I think the value's there.
So again, I don't want to spend too much time on a tight end, but we're looking at Jake Ferguson, David Njoku, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, Pat Freiermuth. We have the confidence in Vegas's current situation to put him over those guys. That's all I'm saying.
100 times out of 100.
Great. He's on my Dynasty team. I'm excited about it. I'm just asking. I'm simply just asking.
To me, those names you mentioned aren't even close. Njoku is the one you can make an argument for, but Njoku with Deshaun Watson is not Njoku with Joe Flacco. So.
Correct. It's Joe Flacco dog, first off. Yeah. We'll talk about Joe Flacco later when we talk about Anthony Richardson, all right? Because Joe Flacco's about to see 14 games this year for the Indianapolis Colts and lead them to a division title. Yeah! But bouncing to the receiver room before we get out of Las Vegas, Davante Adams. Josh, it's to you. Seeing Davante Adams at wide receiver 13 feels criminal when you just look at who Davante Adams has been and the fact he's being drafted as the first wide receiver 2. It feels like insane value for Davante Adams if you were to get him there. Do you feel the same way, or do you think this is kind of where his ceiling is based on the current situation in Vegas?
It's definitely not where his ceiling is. I mean, he finished wide receiver 10 last year. So, going into age 32 season, expecting a little bit of a downtick in production, I don't think that's crazy or federal. Let's call it what it is, right?
Shout out to my 22-year-old interns that put us on federal in the Indy Fuel office. Stupid.
No, I mean it's not crazy, but at the end of the day, 5 of the last 6 years, Davante Adams is topped 1,000 yards. He has not. Last year was his lowest yards per game since 2017, though. So largely probably the quarterback problem. That problem really didn't get any better, though, this year. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of the yardage maybe isn't there. He's traditionally been more of like an 11, low 12 yards per reception kind of receiver. So you're looking at heavy volume, right? But here's the thing. The last 2 years in Las Vegas, he's seen greater than a 30.5% target share. That is asinine for a top-end wide receiver in this league. So it would not surprise me one bit if he's still over 160 targets come by the end of 2024. That's going to keep him in the top 15 wide receiver conversation, no problem. But when you talk about touchdowns, he has over 90 touchdowns in his career. Only once in the last, since his second year in the league, has he had less than 8 or less than 7, I think, something along those lines. Like, it's just crazy. Like, this guy finds the end zone. And we saw last year when Luke Getsy's calling plays, like, he can hyper-target a wide receiver 1. So, like, I'm really not worried about this by any means. Like, we can talk up and we can hype up Jakobi Meyers all we want. He's never once hit 900 yards in a season, and last year with 8 touchdowns was clearly a spike season. So,
I
don't believe.
You and Matt were so in on Myers. Me and Josh are so out on Myers.
Matt, they don't.
Yeah,
believe.
like you spend a top 13 pick on an offensive weapon. Jakobi Meyers is not Luke Getsy's guy. That's Josh.
They don't believe.
Guy. So,
that's
it's not that I don't believe. I like Myers. We saw his ceiling last year. That's what I'm getting.
Send him back to New England, please.
Yeah, go ahead. More for Davante Adams and more for Brock Bowers.
Yeah, it makes everyone happy. The Patriots get a real receiver, and then everybody in fantasy football becomes happier for it. Ugh. They don't believe, Matt. They don't believe in our boy Jakobi.
You know what? Forgive them for what they do not know, I guess is the best way to put it.
I know. Repent them for their sins. It's okay. Jacoby's a guy. He's a dog. Hell, he could be the quarterback by like week 6. When you think about it.
Then there's Taysom Hill value.
Yeah, then there's Jakobi Meyers.
I will add this. Like, I looked at Brock Bowers and I looked at Hunter Renfrow. If people remember Hunter Renfrow, have we ever seen these two guys in the same room? Because they look like they are the exact same person. I mean,
one I would say spent a little more time in the sun than the other, but yes.
I was about to say, Matt's colorblind. Love that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Brock Bowers and Hunter Renfrow here.
He said Brock Bowers. You guys are so very confused.
I heard Jakobi Myers.
No, he said Brock Bowers. I was like,
I mean,
is there a joke I'm missing here?
Then yes, both of them look like the lightest crayon in the Crayola box. So that is
so fucking confused. I was like,
yes.
So was I. I'm the one who said it.
Yeah,
that checks out.
They got Matt doubting himself. I heard exactly what he was trying to say.
My bad. Before we head into the Saints, wrapping up the best bets. Just going to lay them out here. Ryan has the Raiders to beat the Broncos in both regular season games. That's plus 180 on FanDuel. God, these sports books will put out any fucking bet to take your money.
So weird, bro.
It's insane. Josh just talked about Davante. He has him over 1,000 yards receiving this year. That's minus 112 on FanDuel. He says way over. He also likes the over on Adams receiving touchdowns, which is 6.5. That's even money on DraftKings. And then Matt, you have Adams at 15 plus 1,500 to lead the league in touchdowns. He had 8 last year and led the league in 2022.
He's actually led
like
the league twice
bet.
in the last 4 years.
That's so those are the kind of things you look for on high plus bets. So
this is an easy one. I mean, you're not really risking anything here to throw that out there. Then you kind of hedge that with that 8 or 7.5 touchdown on top of it. So put that bet down on that one. Then go ahead and put a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Parlay.
If you feel confident in that, make a parlay, and your odds are going to go over plus 2,000 at that point, and you'll be sitting pretty. Because if one happens and the other doesn't, you're fucked. It doesn't matter.
No big deal.
Yeah.
But you look at this. Michael Pittman last season, 100 plus passes from Minshew, so almost a 30% target share. Adams is seeing a 34%. The targets are going to be there. 170 targets in 3 straight seasons, and with targets come opportunity. So it's there. I mean, this is a guy that led the league in touchdown passes from Derek Carr. What makes you think he can't do it with Gardner Minshew? It's the same quarterback.
If you put Davante Adams in Justin Jefferson's situation in 2022, everybody would have been drafting Davante Adams 101 in 2023 because Davante Adams would have smoked everything Justin Jefferson did in that offense. Would they have been the same yardage? Maybe. Davante Adams finds the end zone. Josh talked about it last week. Justin Jefferson has a hard time finding the end zone. Davante Adams has not had that issue in his career. Moving down to the Big Easy New Orleans. Last year, 9-8. Again, another team. Really, you were 9-8 last year, New Orleans? That doesn't feel accurate. Same coach, Dennis Allen. New offense, Clint Kubiak, San Francisco passing game coordinator last year and the former offensive coordinator of the Vikings in 2021. Projected starting offense. Talked about Derek Carr's old team. This is his new team. Quarterback 27 currently being drafted. Soon to be supplanted by South Carolina and Oklahoma's own Spencer Rattler. Not really. He still has a long way to go. Alvin Kamara, the RB1, being drafted RB17. Kendre Miller, RB44. And oh, how the turntables Jamal Williams, RB80. Send a prayer up to Jamal Williams.
You score 18 touchdowns, you score 1 touchdown.
I still love Jamal Williams. I think he's one of the best personalities in the league. He's
100%.
Hilarious.
Sometimes you live long enough to see yourself become a villain, right?
There you go.
Oh, he's the greatest villain of all time, if that is true. I see TikToks of him at like anime conventions. This man is an all-world athlete dressed in Pokemon gear.
Oh, yeah.
It is
I just
awesome.
recently saw that TikTok, too.
It is awesome. I love it. Chris Olave, wide receiver 1, currently drafted wide receiver 11. Rashid Shaheed, dog, wide receiver 53. And the only reason he's on this show sheet is because Ryan needs to make a mention of him. A.T. Perry at wide receiver 124, and we'll get there in a second. Cedric Wilson coming over from Miami. Previous to that was in Dallas, wide receiver 4. Juwan Johnson, tight end 20. And quarterback 3, also known as tight end 2, and wide receiver 5, along with RB7, Taysom Hill at tight end 39, RB72, quarterback 35, and wide receiver 66. The 3 of those were made up. The tight end 1 is legit. So, but that's Taysom Hill, also being drafted as kick returner 7, behind Cordero Patterson at 6 because of his advanced age. So, in case you're wondering, for all those, and you can weirdly draft Taysom Hill on defense, which is crazy. If you just wanted to put Taysom Hill as defense, you can just put him as your team defense.
Jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Really, like one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league with 17 deferral years on his contract, like Shohei Ohtani. Absolutely insane. You want to talk about another white crayon in the Crayola box? Taysom Hill, BYU. Hell yeah. We'll start with Ryan's 60-second pitch on A.T. Perry.
I love that we're starting here. I was not ready to start
because
here.
We're just going to do it.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah.
6'5". 6'5" wide receivers. You know, that's the only reason I love him. But what I found absolutely insane was my man had 18 targets last year, but scored 4 touchdowns. This man,
he's 6'5",
eats in the red zone. And while laughably, he's wide receiver 129,
124.
I will make him my last pick in every best ball draft from this point forward, because if that's how he's clearly the red zone target. And now we're talking about an injury to Juwan Johnson where he might not play enough. A.T. Perry, man, could he score 1 time every game? He's going to get those Jimmy Graham looks.
So, Matt, there's a guy that has to throw to him, right? And that guy is Derek Carr. I don't know if he's going to be targeting A.T. Perry all that often. He could. Who knows?
He's going to catch a touchdown every 4 targets.
Who knows? So. 6'5". That's a big body target. Derek Carr does love himself a deep ball. He also loves himself an interception and check down. How do we feel about Derek Carr at quarterback 27? Because I feel like we wouldn't be talking about him here if you didn't feel he was a value.
I think he's a solid QB that you can stick in there, QB2 type guy in super flex type leagues. I think you can feel comfortable with that. I think he can be that guy from week to week, depending on the matchups. You mentioned Juwan Johnson's injury. That is going to be big, especially for any kind of props there for Taysom Hill moving forward. But the key to this whole thing is the Saints keeping the pressure off of Derek Carr. As a Raiders fan, he actually did pretty good when pressure was around. He had a very good completion rate with pressure. However, last season, not so much. I mean, they did a good job. They got Fiago there, moving him from right tackle to left tackle. Millhouse did a good thing there. Mia Kimes are talking about the importance of that move there. But if you look at, according to Fantasy Points data there on Derek Carr, he ranked 7th in the league in completion percentage from a clean pocket at 79.7. And that's using a rate over expectation type analytics there. Derek Carr's QBR of 74 last year when kept clean, that's good. That was 10th in the league. I mean, so we know if Derek Carr is kept clean, he can make some things happen, except he's got that Sam Darnold Ghostbuster thing going on. When people start flying, to me, he's never been the same since he broke his leg in that right before the playoff run that the Raiders made a few years back there. It seems like he's looking around when there's traffic around. It seems a little more hesitant. Under pressure, that rate of 74, that drops all the way down to 9.6. That is a huge discrepancy.
Yeah.
So for me, when we're talking about projecting this Saints offense, it all comes down to keeping Derek Carr clean. And they went out there, they addressed that with the offensive line. They got themselves a left tackle there now to kind of protect him there. I think Fiago there, he was out of Oregon State. That's the guy. His job number one is to protect Derek Carr. And if they can do that, then A.T. Perry can get those targets in the end zone. Chris Olave could be a top 12 wide receiver, but it's all about keeping Derek Carr clean. And if they can do so based on QBR and that completion percentage from a clean pocket, he can creep inside the top 20 as far as quarterbacks are concerned if he's kept clean.
I have him at QB 19. I was just looking at my projection, so I love it. Just so everyone knows, I practice what I preach with the second pick of the 18th round in the Dynasty that Josh and I are in right now, A.T. Perry.
The second pick?
Of the 18th round, Joe.
Oh, I was like, what? Okay, that's fine. Just for reference to see who Derek Carr is going around, he actually got bumped down to quarterback 28 because
wow. It's actually where I have him ranked.
Because New England's own.
Whoa.
Well,
why the hate, Josh?
It's Derek Carr.
I think it's a pocket. I think it's that pocket, really.
He has no protection. He has none. That offensive line was dog shit last year. Now, I will say, like, I'm very much lower than he will probably finish. His lowest fantasy finish literally was his rookie year as QB 20. He has finished.
I was gonna say, we're comping to last year where he was the QB 16. So.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. But again, like, you know, if rankings are based on if everybody's healthy.
That's
and
true.
we all know nobody.
Okay.
People aren't going to be healthy all year. He's going to finish a lot higher than that. I'm not naive to that point, but there's nothing attractive about Derek Carr on a football field. Nothing. He has every year he tops 3,450 passing yards, and every year he is a QB2. He's finished as a QB1 once. He was QB9 his third year in the league. Between 20 and 13, basically, is where he's finishing. You can write that in pen. It's just going to happen. It
was like Phillip Rivers finishing QB9 or QB10 for like 7 straight seasons.
There you go. Exactly. Derek Carr has literally 2 jobs. Feed Chris Olave, feed Alvin Kamara.
Turn the ball over.
That's it.
Turn the ball
Get his playmakers the football. That's all he has to do.
Overthrow deep balls.
Yeah, he'll do that too.
Fumble in the pocket.
Well, I did my offensive line rankings. You know you're a degenerate when you do offensive line rankings.
I love that.
Matt, well, is it already cold in Canada? Do you need help?
That is my
summer that help, boring.
You know? Yeah, well, I've got the Saints line ranked at 32 right now. If you're looking at Fiago there, you got
Matt. How many teams are in the NFL? Just for first time listeners. Okay, thank you. So they're dead last. Fantastic.
But if things do work, and we've seen this, we've projected lines to be bad. I mean, we projected offensive lines to be good. If something were to change, if there was something that could flip the switch, I mean, that's the key to Derek Carr. That's the key to the Saints offense, is what that offensive line can do and what it can hold up to do. So, I mean, Ramczyk, we know he's a good offensive line. Ruiz, we know he's a solid offensive lineman.
He's just
after that, there's a lot of questions there. So
Ruiz is just older. He was great a few years ago.
Wasn't he an older? Yeah, he was a little older as a rookie too, I think.
He was. Yeah, he's been good. He's just getting old. That's his issue, is he's losing his touch. Because I wonder if Ruiz was still there, and that helps, but it doesn't help enough to not be ranked dead last. That's tough. But for those wondering where Carr's going, he's 28. 3 guys ahead of him: Bryce Young, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, in order. If you're confident enough to take one of those rookies over Derek Carr, more power to you.
But this is the thing, Joe. You're not taking any of those guys to be your starter. Like, these are all QB2s. Sure. If you're drafting them, what are you shooting for? You're shooting for upside. You're not shooting for
threes.
But again, still, like, you're shooting for upside. You're not shooting 100%. For, you know what? I want the QB 18 in fantasy. No, you don't want safe and boring. You want
Derek
upside.
Carr is awful for best ball.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Correct. That ranking is probably different in redraft. 100%. He probably creeps up closer to 20 in redraft. But
I don't even think I'd go that far. But
Josh, you just don't like Derek Carr. It's okay. You can admit that. It's okay. This is a safe space. I say I hate people all the time, and that's okay. I love Derek Carr when he's slinging deep balls to guys like Rashid Shaheed, who we're going to talk about. Because if there is one guy that you would rest on who might be the best ball value of most guys in the NFL, I'd venture to say Rashid Shaheed is somewhere near the top of that list, because he'll get 2, maybe 3 catches a game, but in those 2 to 3 catches, he has 80 to 100 yards and is probably finding the end zone. So, Ryan, you want to talk about Rashid Shaheed.
I say I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Shaheed because we got A.T. Perry into the show. First and foremost, Chris Battistell just dropped an article on Rashid Shaheed. Go check it out. I'm going to echo a lot of what he's saying. You love to see the growth. Targets doubled from year 1 to year 2. But Chris hit a point, and Joe, to your point, best ball daydream. His first 2 touches in the NFL were touchdowns. Like, this is what this
bombs,
guy
too.
does.
They were bombs.
And then the last thing I'm going to throw out there, if you are in Scott Fishbowl, Rashid Shaheed is the definition of this scoring, because he is the sole returner, at least was last year, for the New Orleans Saints. Now, they're talking about getting other guys involved this year, but it's going to be Shaheed's job to start with. Rashid Shaheed, people vary, but jumps up to a top 10 wide receiver in Scott Fishbowl scoring if you look at his last year numbers. So if you are in Scott Fishbowl, these are the names you need to know, these return guys. Rashid Shaheed is that guy for Scott Fishbowl. You are going to be shocked at where you see his ADP end up. But the long and short of it is, he is a gadget type player. And Josh, you mentioned they have, I'm blanking on the name, Kubiak there. He's not Deebo Samuel size-wise, but he is Deebo Samuel gadget-wise. And Kubiak is the guy that's going to figure out a different way to get him the ball. I'm going to be real interested to see how many different ways he scores a touchdown this season.
I love Rashid Shaheed. Absolutely no hate on the Shaheed side of things. One guy I do hate, but should be okay this season. This man was drafted 3rd overall on my team, and I had to sit in a fucking diner and eat pancakes because his dumb ass couldn't find the fucking end zone and averaged less than 4 yards per carry, because I stand by the statement, Alvin Kamara can't run between the tackles. I stand by the statement. And why is that, Matt? Because they have the worst fucking offensive line in the NFL. There you go. But here's the thing. When Derek Carr's giving him 35 targets in 2 games, that negates everything.
And ignore him.
Yeah, you can't ignore him at that point. At RB17, if this man's going to get 90-plus targets, he's a steal, right, Josh?
100%. And that's why you love Alvin Kamara. I mean, you look at the last 3 years running the football, 3.7, 4.0, and 3.9 yards per carry. Not great. Poo-poo. 2 of those years, he had well over 200 carries. Again, not great. He is not somebody that you want to hand the football to over 200 times. 170, maybe 180. Okay, that's fine. The problem the last couple of years, the Saints have not had a viable RB2. This is why they drafted Kendre Miller. And Kendre Miller kind of had a lost season last year, dealing with injuries. And then this coaching staff just saying, you know what, we paid Jamal Williams a lot of money. Let's make sure we get something out of it.
Let's make sure he scores the last touchdown of the season.
That wasn't even their decision. It was Jameis Winston's.
Yeah. Jameis said, my boy, my dog.
Kamara's value lies in receiving work. It's all about the receiving work. He finished 4th last year among running backs in yards per route run, which, Joe, I know goes over your head as an analytics guy. But take it for this. It was a lot better than Christian McCaffrey. And from a receiving perspective, over their careers, they've basically been the exact same wide receiver out of the backfield. Clint Kubiak, the passing game coordinator, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers, with Christian McCaffrey last year, that's how they should be using Alvin Kamara. From a pass-catching perspective, that is a top 12 running back in fantasy football. And Alvin Kamara has a nose for the end zone. He scored a ton of touchdowns, maybe just not helping Joe that one season. But if this offensive line can get going, he can score 10-plus through the ground and through the air.
It was 2 years ago he only had 4 touchdowns, right? It was 2
I think
years
so,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah, not last year. Last year did better. Matt, did you want to bring up anything?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on. I got Kamara as my RB12 in redraft this season. I really like him. I don't think I think that's you can make the case. I think he was third in points per game last season as far as running backs are concerned. I think 75 receptions, give or take, in less than 13 games. Kubiak coming in this passing kind of offense there, 19.3% target share. That was second amongst running backs. So we know if we're talking PPR, Kamara's a guy that can easily be in that top 5 conversation when it's all said and done. I got him at RB12. Kind of that offensive line still kind of has me a little bit worried, but I mean, RB17, that's way too low. Way too low.
Yeah, I have him right now as my RB8, and I'll tell you what, as long as this pseudo holdout keeps going, that ADP is only going to do this. It's only going to come down, making him that much more of a value.
And obviously different coaching staff, different everything, but if they use Kendre as a Mark Ingram to Alvin Kamara, we talked about it with Tony Pollard and mentioned that this year Tony Pollard should have a better year because he will be splitting the backfield and not be the lone dog. That was the thing with Kamara. He's been the lone dog. The best he ever was with Mark Ingram taking the brute and the brunt of most things, and Kamara can go and do stuff on off tackles and in the receiving game. So if that happens...
Hey, if you told me that Kendre Miller would get at least 150 carries this year, Alvin Kamara I would pencil in as a top 5 running back.
I'd put Kendre Miller a lot higher because I would like Kendre Miller to do something for my Dynasty roster. That would be great for me personally. Alvin Kamara should have a great season, barring the 32nd ranked offensive line, according to Matt Donnelly. Matt, next year's show, or next show we have you on, I'd like you to rank CFL offensive lines and tell me if they're better or worse than the New Orleans Saints offensive lines.
Give me 5 minutes. It's only 9 teams, man.
Matt, do you keep up with the CFL? Are you a CFL fan?
I am. So I'm just south of Calgary, Alberta, home of the Calgary Stampeders. But I'm a Saskatchewan Roughriders fan when it's all said and done.
Hell yeah,
I got where are we at here? Oh, hang on 1 second. Let's just wait. Oh,
Grey Cup.
There we go. I got my melon head.
I love it.
I was going to say, is that a watermelon? Saskatchewan Roughriders, Calgary Stampeders, Toronto Argonauts, British Columbia Lions. I'm
surprised you even know that many CFL.
Yeah, dude,
that is
dude.
Impressive.
The Grey Cup. They play for the Grey Cup. Cameron
That's about
Wake.
the only thing I know. I know them and the Argonauts. That's it.
First off, Doug Flutie, fucking CFL legend. Doug Flutie. Cameron Wake, I believe, came from the CFL. Yeah. I know he's Canadian.
Ricky Williams played a.
Ricky Williams. Well, Ricky Williams was good enough.
He was
to
already
not play in the
established.
CFL. Yeah. But there's been some good
Joe
players
Theismann,
that have come from the
Warren
CFL.
Moon. I mean, we can go on and on. Alex
Warren
Singleton's down there right now. Like, it's been a nice feeder league. Joe Theismann made his cut his teeth there in
King
with the Toronto Argonauts way back when, and of course Damon Allen, brother of Marcus Allen, probably the greatest passer in football history. I think he's got more passing yards than any other quarterback in football history.
Wow.
CFL highlights are fun because the end zone's like 75 yards deep and the goalposts are just directly in the middle of it. So
it's like
a nice little screenplay, a nice little rub you could do.
Oh, it's awesome. They use the ref and the fucking goalposts to rub off screens. And again, the end zone is literally 20 yards deep. It's awesome. It's fantastic.
You know what? It is tough to defend. Like, as someone who played Canadian football growing up, your nickel corner or our defensive halfback, I mean, you're on an island because that slot receiver's got a two-way go and get run at you off the snap of the ball. So you have to be, and then you got to look out for goalposts in the middle of the field. I mean, it changes the game completely. You know how many times I've hit that goalpost?
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm wearing a helmet now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why Matt stays inside and talks about football instead of running around getting knocked in the head previously. bets before we move on to the Indianapolis Colts. We have Ryan, the Saints to score the most points in the regular season at plus 4,000 on FanDuel.
They were top 10 last year, and I think they're going to get better with this return game rules. I was shocked that it was plus 4,000. Why not?
I will say to you the same thing I said to Josh about his Bo
I knew
Nix
you were going to.
winning Rookie of the Year award. Might as well just go to McDonald's, spend $10 on a Big Mac, and throw it out the fucking window, because that's a better use of your money than betting the New Orleans Saints to score the most points this season. Josh, you have Derek Carr over 3,450.5 passing yards. That's even money on DraftKings.
He's literally done it 9 straight years. He's topped that mark.
The passing yard,
it's that low, honestly.
The passing yard lines have been very low for some reason.
Yeah.
Incredibly
low. They're low for some people. When we get to the next one, it's way too high. So
fair. Matt, you have Shaheed over 3.5 touch. His line is 3.5 touchdowns.
I think it's just receiving though.
Just receiving touchdowns. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Like I said, I will hammer some money on that as soon as we're off the show tonight.
Yeah, 3.5 touchdowns. My God, yeah, smoke the over on that, and that's on Caesars Sportsbook.
Yeah, I mean, look at the 5 last year. He's already done this. This is not a big shock. You want to talk about that? You guys talk about best ball. The need for Shaheed here. 15th in deep targets, 17th in yards per target, 15th in yards per reception. 3 weeks as a top 12 fantasy wide receiver.
Dog.
That's awesome.
Love Shaheed. I love Shaheed. Love that man. Moving into my current hometown where I currently live, the Indianapolis Colts. Let me tell you, I don't really know what the buzz is around here. It just kind of feels like, the Colts. It's just kind of what it feels. It's like, Joe Flacco could be our quarterback, and Jonathan Taylor's there, and Michael Pittman got a deal. Like, there's no hype around this team whatsoever. But there is a lot of hype for Anthony Richardson at quarterback 5, which we'll talk about later, because Mr. Ryan does not like him. Also, same coach, same offense, Shane Steichen calling the plays. Joe Flacco, quarterback 37 ADP. He was brought over off his mother's couch from the Cleveland Browns.
I love it.
That is where he is now. Jonathan Taylor, RB4. Evan Hull, his backup, who will see a lot of time as the RB73. And then Trey Sermon is the RB74. Jonathan Taylor has zero competition in this backfield. It is him. And Evan Hull will simply be his, Jonathan, you need a breather?
Oh, I heard.
Come on out.
I recently read Trey Sermon is outplaying Evan Hull.
Yeah, that's why, when I saw these rankings, I'm like, really? People are taking Hull over Sermon?
Yeah, that's shocking.
I agree. I literally just went in order the depth chart. I agree. Trey Sermon's better by far. Michael Pittman, wide receiver 24. Adonai Mitchell, formerly known as AD, wide receiver 57. Josh Downs, 62. Alec Pierce, wide receiver 120. And Anthony Gould, wide receiver 5. No answer. He's not being drafted.
I say Scott Fishbowl.
Scott Fishies. Jelani Woods, tight end 28. And Kylan Granson currently not being drafted. We will start at the tight end position for the second time we go to that position, because Mr. Matt Donnelly wants to talk about Jelani Woods at tight end 28. He's saying tight end saw a 32% target share with Anthony Richardson versus 19% with Minshew. So if Richardson's healthy, you really love Jelani Woods here.
I do. What's not to love about it? We just talked about A.T. Perry being 6'5" and giving Ryan all kinds of wet dreams over here. Well, I love myself a good tight end. 6'7", 6'7". That's 2 more inches, Ryan, and every inch counts all the time.
That's a lot.
Size matters, folks.
Some say that
that's enormous.
Matt, some say that's too much if you ask some people.
4'6", 40 at the combine. This guy,
insane. He's an athlete.
We can talk about Shane Steichen here was talking about him earlier. Big body tight end that can run vertical routes, run the shallows, run the deep cross. It's awesome to see. Obviously, he's a matchup for a defense that they got to prepare for. That's coming right from Steichen. Who else do they got there in Indianapolis? I mean, Will Malroy. I mean, Malroy doesn't. No, stop it right now.
Will Mallory.
The only thing that can stop Jelani Woods is Jelani Woods himself, right? The injuries.
That's what's stopping him.
Will Mallory sounds like the physical therapist Jelani Woods goes to for his knee problem.
Probably. It's probably that whole like Tanya Harding take out the knee type thing there. That's the only way Malroy's going to get on the field there with Jelani Woods. I love Woods. Tight end 28. I mean, he's the number one tight end there in Indianapolis. And if Anthony Richardson is going to be that QB5 that the ADP's currently got him at, which is a little bit higher than where I've got him at, 32% target share to the tight end position. Volume matters. If that volume is going to, if we're going to see any of that, if Jelani Woods even gets 25% of a target share, 20% of a target share, that's going to put him up in elite status for targets. It's going to be Michael Pittman. We know what he got. I think he got like 29% there of the target share with Anthony Richardson, maybe I think 26 with Gardner Minshew. But you know Pittman is going to get his. By the way, I love myself some Michael Pittman. I think that our wide receiver 24 is a horrible number for him. But Jelani Woods is a nice – every year we see a tight end rise from the ashes of the tight end wasteland that is. And this is going to be that Jelani Woods Phoenix-type moment for the tight ends in fantasy.
Let the man eat. I mean –
Let him eat.
Like 6'7", 260. He runs a 4.6 is insane. Yeah. He is if there's an athlete out there, that is one right there. He is a power forward playing tight end with he has the athleticism of an NBA player. It's insane.
Love it.
Fuck it. I mean, we always talk on this show. Ryan brings up all the time because he does his stream of the weeks. Jelani Woods, I can guarantee you for Ryan, is probably going to see a lot of stream of the weeks
100%.
This year.
If he's healthy, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, Will Mallory made my list last year at points. So.
Did he?
Oh, yeah. Towards the end of the season, he was getting involved. So,
jeez. Okay. How about that?
Well, they ran like 7 tight ends last year, and Woods wasn't even a part of that group. They were all over the place. So.
Before we go into who Ryan, I'm sure will spend enough time on, and I know the show's going to go over, but Josh, give me a little quick hit on Jonathan Taylor. He's RB4 this year.
Yeah, it's hard to not love Jonathan Taylor. He's been the RB1 in fantasy, 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns in his second year in the league, almost 3,000 rushing yards combined his first 2 years. Dealt with some injuries the last couple of years, so I feel like some people might be forgetting about it, but probably not if he's the RB4, right? But here's the thing he loved. Shane Steichen, the last 3 years, his rushing offenses have ranked starting in 2021, 1st overall, 5th overall, 10th overall. Some might choose to look at it as they've gotten progressively worse. I look at it as with a healthy Anthony Richardson, this could be the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. When you have a talented running back like Jonathan Taylor with a quarterback that runs the football like Anthony Richardson, that is only going to open up more rushing lanes. Jonathan Taylor, if healthy, has a clear path to over 1,500 yards and honestly, probably 15 rushing touchdowns as well. That's a top 3, probably the RB1 in fantasy, regardless of how many passes that he ultimately catches, which I think is probably going to be in the 30 range.
He has now dropped to RB5. He's actually at the top end of the second round.
Screaming value. Screaming value.
Jahmyr Gibbs has jumped him to RB4. So Jonathan Taylor currently RB5, sitting 3 spots ahead in terms of overall being drafted, ahead of Saquon Barkley at RB6, which also feels like a little bit of an oversight there. So the running backs definitely getting a little bit of disrespect with all the receiving game happening in recent years. And Hoove brings up, I read about the Colts offense in a new article coming soon to Club Fantasy.
Friday.
I believe that will drop on Friday. I know the schedule. Go me, baby. So Ryan, I'm sure Hoove is going to talk about this guy. And this is going to be the most interesting game of Would You Rather ever, because I think we might get to the double-digit points of time where we might be talking about we'd like this guy over Anthony Richardson. He's the QB5 currently, and Gator drops, Field Yates has him as the quarterback 3 in fantasy football.
Fucking ass.
Yikes.
So the issue with Anthony Richardson right now is the extrapolation game. Because everybody is looking at what he did last year. And the easiest thing to do is just take a game off, because he essentially, 2 of his games he left at halftime. So you could say he played 3 games, though I think he only actually finished start to finish 1 game last season, but we won't get into all that. So he basically played 3 games last year. And when you look at his numbers, they extrapolate to your very typical rushing quarterback, except for one number. So when you look at the passing numbers, you can multiply by 5. So you're looking at roughly 200 or 420 pass attempts for a rushing quarterback makes sense. I did the math on a 17-game season with his attempts. He would have been at about 3,200 yards. Gardner Minshew had 3,300. It makes sense. Rushing attempts, 125. That makes sense when you look at guys like Lamar Jackson. Rushing yards is probably low because he only extrapolates out to like 650. But then you get to rushing touchdowns. And in his 3 games, he scored 4. And you can't, if you're looking at that and thinking my man is going to score 20 rushing touchdowns, you're out of your fucking mind. And that's what it's going to take for him to jump up to these numbers where people routinely, my great friends over at Football Guys, I might be the only person who does not have him as a top 5 quarterback over there. I don't have him as a top 10 quarterback.
Same.
Yeah. I can't get into this for 2 major reasons. We saw the upside. We certainly saw the upside, but we saw the downside, and you need to consider that when you're making this. The Colts did. They went out and got Joe Flacco after seeing what he did. I can't imagine a scenario where he plays 17 games. I can't imagine a scenario where he scores the 20 touchdowns it's going to take for him to be a top 5 quarterback. He is going to be a fun fantasy option. You better draft a backup quarterback if you're going to take Anthony Richardson. And then I agree with Matt. I like Michael Pittman a lot, and the target should be there. I haven't seen enough Anthony Richardson to know what that means. Pittman from weeks 1 through 5, the Richardson weeks, but again, we can't even call them that because he didn't play every game. He was the wide receiver 22 in fantasy. That's still safe based on where he's being drafted right now. It's the rest of the guys we need to be worried about. So I'm going to be real interested to read Hoove's article on A.D. Mitchell. Josh Downs was the wide receiver 44. Alec Pierce was the wide receiver 93. Pittman had his best game and his worst game with Anthony Richardson during that span. We didn't even get to see him play with Jonathan Taylor. So we have no idea what any of this looks like. Colts running backs only scored 3 rushing touchdowns while Anthony Richardson was the quarterback. So there's so many unknowns with this Colts offense in general. Pittman, I'm okay with at ADP. I am not touching. Well, let me be clear. Jelani Woods, if you're playing the streaming game at tight end, perfect option at the free at the end of your draft. But these guys with mid-round ADPs, it's too risky with this guy at quarterback.
This is how we're going to end before going into the bets. Is a would you rather, because I think this is insane, some of the names he is being put in the conversation with currently at quarterback 5. So I normally go the 2 guys ahead of him, so he would be 3 and 4. Those guys are Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. If you're taking Anthony Richardson over either of those guys, I
want to be in your league. No. We want to play in a league with you.
Yeah, we want to play in a league with you, 1. 2, you need to get hit by a car and slammed into a brick wall to make sure your head's screwed on correctly. Because what the fuck are you doing? I know Mahomes had a down season, but exactly, put the watermelon helmet on and get ready to run through a brick wall head first. Because you clearly have hit too many field goal posts like Matt has. That is crazy. So we're going to skip that part. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing we did with Zamir White, is I'm going to say a name. And if you would take Anthony Richardson over this guy, speak up. C.J. Stroud, quarterback 6.
I'm just going to go to sleep. You're not going to.
I was going to say, I'm not going to say anything for Ryan. I'm also looking at Josh and Matt. Kyler Murray. Joe Burrow. Dak Prescott. Jordan Love. You get into 2 rookies where you can have conversation, Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams.
Jaden Daniels is the interesting one. That's an overdraft. Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson could be the exact same player. I would take Richardson over Jaden Daniels.
I would too.
I'd take Daniels over Caleb Williams too. So I mean,
and that's what I like.
Ooh, Caleb Williams, I'm way higher on. Yeah.
The rookies is a weird one because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Brock Purdy.
That's a close one for me. I've got Richardson just a little bit ahead because of that rushing upside.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
Purdy needs some respect. I mean, Purdy is a QB1. And I don't think we talk about that nearly enough in fantasy.
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I'd put him over Trevor Lawrence.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have TLaw. I have TLaw higher in my rankings, but I think at that point, like I have zero issue taking A-Rich just because of the perceived.
So that's how I'm trying to play this game, because rankings wise, I would say no to just about everyone except Jaden Daniels. But even looking at him, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is like my cutoff point where I would every time. No, he's not. Honestly, Anthony Richardson is my QB 15. All 14 people I have ahead of him, every time I would take them over Anthony.
Currently quarterback 15, Tua Tagovailoa.
He's my 13. Yep.
I was going to say, that's where it gets really, I mean, Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, and Anthony Richardson are all in that same area for me, where you can make an argument for any one of them, depending on what you want from your position, safety or upside.
And that's such a good point, because Joe, you were even shocked a few weeks ago when I mentioned that Tua led the league in passing yards. And so like, it didn't feel that way.
No.
Yeah.
Like what? No. And then you're getting into Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Cousins.
So Herbert, I would still put over him. I have turned a page on Herbert and moved him up, but the Jared Goff thing, that's where I'm with these guys, where I have Richardson ahead of him and I would take him ahead of them. So
I would still take Goff. I know exactly what I'm getting out of Jared Goff.
His first 9 games.
At home or on the road?
In a dome. His first 9 games are in a dome.
He plays like 15 games indoors this year.
Yeah, it's
so
insane.
it doesn't matter whether it's away or not. Like
Jared Goff's a house cat. He's not a jungle cat. He can't go outside. He can't do that.
That's my point. More than half of his road games this year are indoors.
Yep.
I agree with that. So obviously, I don't think any of us are thinking Anthony Richardson is a 5th-round pick where he's currently being drafted.
He's going every draft in the entire world. 1 out of 12 guys sees Anthony Richardson that way, and his ADP is not going to move. And like, if you're in a league with me, you can wait till the 9th before I would even consider it. And I would have taken another guy. I'll take Jordan Love or Dak Prescott in the 8th every single draft. So.
And that's where I was going to say Anthony Richardson, if we're to put him at Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams territory, is the 9th round. If you want to add Brock Purdy, it's the 10th round.
That's where he belongs. If you put him there, I would shut the fuck up about it, but it's just not where it is right now.
But to me, would you want to wait 3 more rounds for Kirk Cousins? Would you want to wait 4 more rounds?
And Matt, I got the ick as well. I was like,
would you wait 4 more rounds for Aaron Rodgers if you believe he's going to play all 17 games?
I fucking hate Aaron Rodgers.
I fucking hate Aaron Rodgers too, but there's going to be people that are going to say, yeah, I would wait.
That's a better game. We're way over, so I'm not going to get. That's a better game. Is the late round guys I would wait for if he was in the 9th round, but I don't want to talk about Anthony Richardson.
No, we don't need to, because we literally covered every guy fucking 5 through 20, because there's first off 6 through 10 he has no business even being in the same conversation.
Exactly. That's my thing. Is when
this is the same thing we went through with Justin Fields. The guy can't pass.
Did you guys see on Field Yates's post? Someone went and pulled this exact post from last year where he had Fields as the top 5 quarterback.
This is the same thing. It's like rushing can only get you so far, and Anthony Richardson is a very different type of runner. He's not a Fields or a Lamar Jackson that is galloping down the field. He's a bruiser like Cam Newton and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a 600 to 700 yard guy with a lot of touchdowns, sure, and I get that. But Jalen Hurts, when he was doing this, was throwing 3,600 yards, right? When you look at the top 20 rushing outputs of quarterbacks over the years, they're not high-end passing volume seasons. And more to the point, they have a lot of starts under their belt when they did it. Anthony Richardson has like 4 career starts. 4. We're a year too early on Anthony Richardson if he gets to this point.
And 1 career finish.
Yeah. He's just, we're
finishing's hard.
Way
okay?
too early.
Not everyone can finish. Okay, finishing's hard.
Philip Rivers has no problem.
Yeah.
17 times, baby.
Dude, that man has a full fucking starting lineup. Yep. But to compare him to the guy who is true, like that's his Cam Newton is fully this man's comp.
100%.
This is who he is.
But in today's NFL, they want to comp him to Hurts and Lamar Jackson. And
100%.
That's not who he is.
Not it.
But he's Cam Newton. Cam Newton, I believe, was a better passer coming out. He had his struggles, but he's a better passer. in worlds ahead, I think, a better runner.
I think Cam
than
Newton
Anthony
only had
Richardson.
one season over like 62% completion percentage.
Definitely.
Literally just going to look that up, Josh.
And I think that was his MVP season.
But on the ground, he was a fucking menace on the ground.
Yeah.
Which, like, again, Anthony Richardson is so far away from that. But Cam Newton also, I don't believe he was coming in with like pre-existing injuries and shit like that was really going to complicate. And he didn't miss his full fucking rookie season. So
he had 4,000 yards this season.
Cam Newton played every game until his fourth season. I'm just happen to have it up right now. Played most games, never went out. To Josh's point, he flirted. It was every other season, above 60, below 60, above 60, below 60 on his completion percentage.
He was built, last year in those 4 games was at 59.5.
He's just built like a fucking fridge. And Richardson, while he is just more injury prone. So, very interesting. Bets to finish it off. Ryan, you have the Colts score 1 rushing touchdown in every game of the regular season. This is plus 9,000 on FanDuel. And
that is wild.
I actually love that fucking bet.
I do too, yeah.
I love that bet. If Anthony Richardson plays every game,
that's a lot.
He could play at 14 or 13 games as long as Jonathan Taylor is healthy. They're hitting this mark.
Oh my God, that's a great bet. That is an awesome bet. $10 to win 900. Sure, lock me in on that one. Josh, if Anthony Richardson under 3,200.5 passing yards.
This is literally what I was talking about. Just way, way, way too high.
One of the best dual threat quarterbacks ever, not named Cam Newton. Michael Vick, I think, hit 3,200 like 3 times in his career. So it's not happening, folks. Unless Anthony Richardson turns into
it's just
MVP
not this
Cam Newton.
Year. That's the thing. People are trying to hype him up way too soon. Even Jalen Hurts didn't take this big of a jump his second year in the league. It was the third
year 3. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. We are way too early on A-Rate.
And I always point out to people, we don't hate players. We hate ADPs. It's the ADP is the problem. So.
Sure. Yeah, because I love what Anthony Richardson could become. But he was a reach at 4th overall because of the upside in the Shane Steichen offense that we saw from Jalen Hurts. But he was very unpolished even coming out of Florida. He's not getting more polished having sat out for 13 games this past year. It doesn't work that way.
Hertz was unpolished coming out of Bama, moving to Oklahoma. He was a little more polished, but it took some time in Philly. Matt, you have Pittman, as you mentioned. You love Pittman, over 950.5 receiving yards. It's minus 110 on DraftKings. Matt, can you gamble in Canada? Is that legal? Can you gamble?
Dude, I gamble every winter in Canada. I don't wear pants until it's minus 50. Okay?
Hell yeah.
That ain't happening up here. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. He's not wearing pants.
That might be the best line we've had on NPI in quite some time. No
He's
offense,
not
Joe.
wearing pants until icicles are that's when he puts pants on. All right? He's out there, watermelon hat and just pasties just to block the nipples just in case. And everything else, free balling.
Don't worry, I grow my winter coat nice and thick here for the winter season, so we don't have to worry about a whole heck of a lot.
I was gonna say
whether you think Richardson's QB1 or QB20, I don't think it affects what Pittman's going to do. You look at what he did last season, like 140 targets, 90 receptions. If that's his floor, if that is Pittman's floor, 90 receptions, averaging about 10.6 yards per reception, that there puts him at 954 yards, if I did my math correct. So his floor is already over that number. And then you add in the whole say Richardson misses. Oh, no, Richardson's going to miss. The Colts can run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, which means the play action passer rating of Joe Flacco at 121.3, that comes into effect. Only Brock Purdy, I think, had a higher passer rating out of play action than Joe Flacco, the comeback player of the year. So whether it's Flacco, whether it's Richardson, it don't matter. Pittman's going to get his.
If it's Flacco, Pittman gets it in 6 games. Like Amari Cooper dropped 300 in a game with Joe Flacco. Michael Pittman can do that as well. 100%. So, yeah, if Anthony Richardson gets hurt, I think that actually helps Michael Pittman's over bet way more.
And Jelani Woods.
those odds will change. If Richardson were a preseason injury, that bet will be off the books immediately.
Immediately, or his over jumps to like 1,200, and then you're having a conversation there. But yeah, that if Flacco's in, it's easily over 1,000. Mr. Donnelly, thank you for joining us, my friend.
What a show!
It was a beautiful show. Where can everybody find you and your work?
Yeah, I mean, right there, it's on the screen there. The Vipers Fantasy Network on the YouTube channel. Behind the Grind, we just did one with Matt Miller there from ESPN, the Draft Scout. We got Corey Parson coming on next week. Patrick Claiborne is coming on, working on Cynthia Freeland. I mean, we're working on all kinds of things to get over on the show here. So you want to check out the Behind the Grind. Obviously, RotoBaller. I've got my Dynasty trade chart article-ish type thing kind of working out. I mean, I got this trade chart right here for Dynasty. 395 players with a value assigned to them on top of draft. I mean, we're trying to figure a way to shrink it to make it fit into an article. It's probably not going to happen anytime soon, but we're working on it. And, of course, over at Fantasy Points, doing my thing there in the Discord channel. And there may be an article dropping at the end of July, beginning of August, maybe right before the Expo, that has a lot. It's a very personal type article that involves fantasy football. I'm still not sure if it's going to get released or what I'm going to do with it, but we're looking at that coming out around the mental health podathon type time is what I'm looking at. So keep an eye out for that.
If you ever wondered what Canadians do in their free time, it's put value on 395 Dynasty fantasy football players.
And offensive
and fat men. I love to value a good fat man too.
Yeah. And rank offensive lines. If you ever wondered, that's what they do. And go balls out with a watermelon helmet in negative 49-degree weather and wait till it hits 50 to put pants on. That's what Canadians do up there. Look Inside is in full swing. Make sure you're checking out the website for some player-specific articles. This week, Brock Bowers, Rashid Shaheed are already up. One more dropping on Friday. Hoof also talks about, in his Colts article, Joe Flacco's potential in the article as well. That'll be a fun one to talk about. Next week, Seahawks, Jaguars, Bengals. Chris Allen from Fantasy Life joins us, our resident Bengals fan. Make sure you're subscribed on the tube as well. If you're watching this anywhere else, please go to YouTube, subscribe for us. We really greatly appreciate it. And next week is at 8 p.m. Eastern because 7 p.m. just feels too easy for us now. So we're just bouncing
Chris is on
around.
the road. So,
we get hotel room Chris again.
We get hotel room Chris again.
Hotel room Chris. We have a new show, Trade Blocked, our new Dynasty trade show with Joel Worth, Hoove, and Dusty Lunt. I wanted to say Dusty Lynch for some reason. Is that a singer? Dustin Lynch is a country singer. That's who I was thinking of. From Drinking and Talking Fantasy, that debuts at 8 p.m. Eastern. When? What day? You just says debuts at 8 p.m.
Tomorrow.
Okay, great. You decided not to put that in the show sheet.
That's my fault.
So, yeah, stupid. Mock Girls Summer with Wendy, 10 p.m. Eastern. Joey Wright from Football Guys tomorrow night. They're doing, and Scott Fishball 14 mock tomorrow, and Julia is on the show. Again, Josh typing this in as I'm doing this. He's 0 for 2 currently on the shows. Mock It Like It's Hot with Ryan and Austin, Saturdays at 11 with actor Michael Stoyanov. Am I saying that correctly?
You are, yeah.
Beautiful. Doing a Scott Fishbowl mock. Dynasty After Party with Sicoli and Joel, Sundays at 11 a.m. Mocking with the Stars, Gator J and Chris, Mondays at 10 p.m. Masterclass with Gator again and Stacey Perez, 8:30 p.m. And if you like some golf and you like winning money, Who's Your Caddy? Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern. If you can bet on the foursome for the USA and the Olympics, I would fucking do that because nobody is beating that team. Yeah. That team is loaded for the USA. If we don't get every gold medal, it'll be a failure. It just simply will be a failure in this Summer Olympics. And that is all, folks. For Josh, myself, Matt, and Ryan, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships. Watermelon hats prevent concussions. We will see you next week.